Hey, you guys, I'm in Salt Lake City right now, and I want to talk about I guess, why I'm still sitting here after I got here yesterday. It's been rather, well, eventful, uneventful, I guess, couple days here. I just completed a 34-hour reset in not Little America, but Sydney, Nebraska, the other day, or yeah, actually yesterday morning. Um, and then I had a delivery to make here about 30 miles north of here in Clearfield. So it was only about a 530-mile shift from fresh off off the 34 to when I made my delivery. I was going to head up to Hiram, Utah, which is up by Logan, to set up to get ready to pick up a JBS load it's not due until tomorrow to pick up. I was going to San Antonio, but um, it was supposedly going to be ready around noonish today. Uh, well, while I was in the middle of grabbing my empty at Maricold, I got a call from one of the DMs asking me to come down here to Salt Lake City and basically meet his driver down here and take his load from him here. I guess they were trying to get him home. So, yeah, for a doctor's appointment. Well, so I went ahead and came down here, got my trailer washed out across the street, and then came over here, filled up my reefer unit, and then parked it, and then waited, hung out here for a little while, and then I called the other driver and found out he was going to be here this morning. Um, and turned out, when he gets here with the load, and well, actually before, while we're talking on the phone yesterday, he was mentioning how it was a really heavy load, and how he had to slide both the tandems and the fifth wheel to get his weights just right. So it made me a little concerned right off the bat because this is a load going into California. So I mean, how much adjustment can you actually do with the tandems to make it legal for California? So um, had me a little concerned, but I went ahead and waited for him to show up. Maybe because it sounded like he put the effort into trying to make it legal. So I just waited for him to get here this morning, and um, first part, I wasn't really sure why it was taking him so long to get here because he had told me around what time was it? I think like 6:25 or something like that, or 7:25. I forget what time it was. Uh, or yeah, regardless. Um, Said he had left about 10 minutes ago, and it's just about a 2-hour drive, maybe a little more with the hills and stuff, and and some 55-mile-an-hour zones here on I-80 in between here and Echo Junction, or where I-80 and 84 meet up. But yeah, it had already gotten closer to 2.5 hours, and I called him up to see where he was at, and turned out he was still not even at the Park City Junction, basically where US 40 meets up, which is still a good 30 miles away. So I'm like scratching my head why it even took him so long to cover that distance, because okay, you got a few hills in western Wyoming to cover. I don't think they would have slowed him down for that long. I mean, they will slow you down on a heavy load, but I don't think it would have been for that much time that he had taken. Well, anyway, he gets over here eventually, and first thing I do is I went ahead and scaled his load. I told him I want to make sure his load scales okay before I take it. So I grab I hook up to his load, head over, go around the lot to the cat scale. And turned out actually before I even did that, when I did the swap, I looked at where his tandems were placed, and he had them at the 42-foot mark, which is 2 feet beyond where I'm allowed to have them in California. That was a concern. I mean, that was a big concern, because if he had to do all this moving around to make his load legal, or what he thought was legal, and then I see that his tandems are at the 42-foot mark, I was even more concerned now. And but I went ahead and slid the tandems to the 40-foot mark, because California, they're very anal about this. I might let them slide about 6 inches more, if I'm, if I, but not necessarily. And and I do have friends who've gotten violations or tickets or whatever for being even just 8 or 9 inches too long. So I mean, this is how anal they are in California about staying at that 40-foot limit. So slid my tandems to 40, went over to the scale and scaled it, and sure enough, my tandem scaled at 35,360, I believe it was. So over 1,300 pounds over the California limit as far as the dual axle limits are concerned. So I ended up having to come back over, park it, and tell them, hey, man, I'm sorry, but I can't take this load. I mean, because I've seen it where I've had friends get put out of service, actually, for being, even just like a foot and a half or 2 feet over length coming in. And so, like, I'm not going to take a chance. And, the load was going to Stockton. So I would have been going across I-80 into, up Donner Pass and through the Truckee Skills, which are never closed. Maybe I could have gotten lucky and gotten a green light on my pre-pass like I did last time, but more often than not, I don't get the green light. I usually get red lighted or no light at all, both of which mean go into the skill. So, it kind of a sucky situation there, but I was kind of jammed up on the time anyway. So I wasn't, at first I was not quite sure what the swap was for, but it turned out it was for the other driver to get to a doctor's appointment in Oregon. But yeah, it basically trashed my whole day because they had canceled my pre-plan for that load in Hiram, picking up in Hiram, so I could come over here and meet up with this guy to take his load. And then I find out I can't even take his load because, hey, I go ahead and take it, and next thing I know, I might end up sitting for a couple of days in Truckee waiting for a transload crew to come take a couple of pallets off the back of my trailer just so I can scale legal. Yeah, I don't play that way. So if you're a new driver, make sure you know what the limits are for every state you're going to be taking a load through, and know what you have a tandem length restriction and you have axle and gross rate restrictions. If you don't know what they are, I advise you get a motor vehicle carrier atlas and start reading it. Page A16 actually, or Alpha 16 of it, up toward the front of the book, is where you can get a lot of this information. Okay, and there are some other states that have rules as well as that, and I've talked about this before in another video in the past. Not every state has the same criteria. Some of them go by kingpin to rear axle, like California does. Some go by kingpin to center of axle group, which is 2 feet forward of the rear axle. And but none of them are as restrictive as California is. There are other states that you can potentially get ticketed for. I know Florida, they're 41-foot kingpin to center of axle group or 43-foot rear axle. And I know they do actually look, and just the problem is how often do people really have to have their tandems after the 43-foot mark to, or 43-foot rear axle mark to keep their weights legal. Okay, also axle weights. Not every state has the same axle weight limit. Some of them have, most of them are 34,000, but there are plenty of others out there. I think there's a good 17 or so states that have higher than 34K dual axle limits. Some of them will be 36, some will be 37. I think there's some others that are a little bit higher. So it's another one of those cases where it really helps to have that atlas on hand and know what the state's limits are, and not put yourself in these risky situations. And I hated to put this guy in this situation, and especially when it was a Tyson load of all things, which is our most important customer. But I mean, it is what it is. Like I can't put my reputation on the line by doing something, getting myself put out of service and eating a violation and a ticket. Even if the company would be willing to pay for it, it still goes on my record, and I'm not done with that. Okay, so please, you guys, make sure you know what. Don't leave that damn shipper if your load's gonna scale overweight. Scale it as close as you can to the shipper and get back to the shipper if you have to and get it reworked. If the shipper doesn't want to rework it, too bad. You call your dispatch and tell them, well, I'm not taking a load because it's not legal. So you can either rework me or you can unload my trailer. Yeah, that's just the way it is. Yeah, and there are sometimes it will do that, but you have to play hardball with them and you make sure you have your scale ticket. You show them what the weights are and where you're at and all that. And if they don't want to budge, then like I said, get with your dispatch. And you can also even tell the shipper to get their product off your trailer then, because you don't roll illegal and you're not going to take their load if they won't set you up legal. All right, that's all I have. I say it's been frustrating because now I don't even have a load. I sat here all day long waiting to get a reload assignment, but for us, Utah's not exactly a heavy freight area for us, and on top of that, it's a weekend, so makes it even worse. So I sat here all day long. Planner was never able to get me a reload assignment, unfortunately. Can't say there's anything wrong with them. Actually, I have a good rapport with that planner, so it just is what it is. And now I'm gonna have to sit and wait till tomorrow, after I've only driven 530 miles fresh off of 34, and now I'm doing another 34, waiting for a reload. How fair is that to me? So, really bad situation here, and at least the other driver was apologetic and thankful for having learned some really important lessons here. So he actually did put the effort into trying to scale it correctly, but he just wasn't aware that he was beyond the 40-foot mark in California. I'm not sure how that happened, how he ended up not knowing that. I hate to say, maybe in fact, well, he was trained at Sierra England, but he did have a pretty good trainer from what he had said. So, and it did sound like the trainer did a pretty good job of at least trying to teach him whatever. But it's just this little missed detail. Maybe he was trained well, and it was just a little missed detail. I forgot about it. He's not used to going into California as much as I am. Especially me being from California. I do a ton of loads into and out of California. So, it was just bad situation. It's completely screwed up what my plan was. I was set to go from Hiram to San Antonio, Texas, and that fell through because of all this. So screwed up his own record on this. Ended up showing up late. The load's going to be running late now. He'll either need another reload, a repower, or he's going to have to get the load rescheduled, which neither is good for him. Not to mention the fact that the fact that in the load that he was supposed to swap out got refused because of the weight issue. I say bad situation there, right? So, like I say, please, if you're a new driver, learn these damn scaling and tandem dimension laws, okay? And don't call it bridge gap. All right, bridge gap is a completely different can of worms. If you look at that's another thing. If you look at an atlas, it's another reason to have an atlas. Bridge gap determines how much weight you can have within a certain amount of feet. It has nothing at all to do with what your tandem length restriction is. Completely different can of worms. Okay, so I don't want to hear people talking about bridge gap limit or whatever. That's complete bullshit. All right, so. You're supposed to, if you're going to be a professional, then be a professional. Learn what you're supposed to be doing out here. We're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes myself still, but and that's just my advice here is to just if you're going to be a professional, at least try to learn to become one. Strive to be the best professional you can out here, right? All right, that's all I have. Thanks for watching.